Well, sources tell CTV News Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is preparing for a possible cabinet shuffle. Senior government sources say the shuffle could happen as early as Wednesday and confirm Trudeau is meeting with cabinet ministers today. Well, for more on this, we are joined live by CTV political commentator Scott Reid. Thank you so much for joining us as always, Scott. So let's talk about who could possibly be on the way out. Let's start with Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino, who's been, front and center in many situations and issues that have arisen, especially recently with the controversial transfer of Paul Bernardo. What do you think there?
It's been a tough run for Mendicino, and you got to feel a little sympathy for the guy. He's got a deputy minister, the Prime Minister's office, and his own staff who don't bother to tell him that Paul Bernardo is going to be moved, and then of course he ends up having to take the punch in the jaw for it. So I do think you'll probably see him move to another portfolio. They call that a demotion in politics. So we'll see how that unfolds. I think the real story of the whole cabinet shuffle, though, is going to be whether or not they move any of the big pieces. I mean, on the one hand, the government is saying, listen, we want to strengthen our communications. We want to put our best players in front of the microphone and make certain our message gets out there. But in the same breath, they say they're not going to move finance, they're not going to move foreign affairs, they're not going to move the industry minister, not going to move the environment minister. Well, heck, it's like playing chess, but saying, get excited about the game, but we're not going to move the queen, the bishop, the knight, or the rook. I don't know.
I've heard you talk about the fact that, when it comes to the Deputy Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, that, when it comes to policy, she's great at the negotiating table, but you've had some criticisms about her getting in front of the microphone and just being, not a very good communicator. Why do you think that Mr. Trudeau needs to have a lot of those great communicators out there in this possible cabinet shuffle? What are you anticipating there?
Well, Jamie, let me carefully communicate what I mean when it comes to Chrystia Freeland. I think she's essential to this government. I think that she's the anchor of it when it comes to the cabinet table. I've worked for a prime minister. I've worked in cabinet. I've watched how people operate around the cabinet table. It seems to me that she is absolutely invaluable in terms of driving the agenda. But I think she's a poor communicator. And what I mean by that is, she talks about cutting Disney Plus when, she's addressing the issue of cost of living. It strikes a strange note with people. So when it comes to kitchen table, street level economics, what's going in and out of your pocket, that's where this government needs to capture public interest. They need to be able to send the signal. We're on your side, fighting to keep costs down, to keep the economy strong, to keep growth, to keep creating jobs. They're not very good at communicating on economic issues. That's what I would be shuffling this cabinet to focus on. I'd be saying, how do we keep all of the great strength that Chrystia Freeland brings to the cabinet, as an example, but put people in front of the microphone and camera who can talk in a way that connects and makes sense to Canadians about the economy and their economic future.
This could be the last opportunity for the Prime Minister to shuffle his cabinet before a federal election. The Conservatives have lost the last three, but opinion polls show that the Liberals are lagging behind the Conservatives right now. If you were advising the Prime Minister heading into this shuffle, what would you say?
Well, I go back to it, to be honest. I'd be saying, listen, there's really three pieces of advice you need to hear. Economy, economy, economy. That's what's on people's minds. The price of groceries, the price of gas, whether or not you're going to get by, not just today, but in the future. And so I would refashion this cabinet around the economic challenges that lie ahead. I don't know that that's going to happen because, again, the major players in the cabinet, they're sending the signal. The Prime Minister's office is signaling that they're not going to move foreign affairs. They're not going to move industry. They're not going to move the finance minister. So, there's no such thing as an unimportant shuffle, at least in the world of Ottawa and how the government works. Every shuffle matters. But if you're not going to move those big essential players, I don't know that it's reasonable to expect a different direction or a different message from this government. So I'm not sure that, frankly, we're going to be talking much about this shuffle on Thursday. I think that it will come and go Wednesday, and that will be that.
CTV political commentator Scott Reid, we always appreciate your time and perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.